All right, what's going on, guys? It's Simple Sports back again. And so obviously it's been a while since I've done a video, and I know in my last video I said I'd be more frequent, blah 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 blah. Here's the bottom line. Let me give you guys the rundown just really quick of what's going on. So basically, I am just I'm unhappy with the time that I have to put in this. It's not enough, and I'm trying to build that window of time where I can do this daily. It's just right now between work and all that stuff. It's just little taxing, but uh, actually the biggest issue that I have, and that's only about 10 to 15%. Mostly because my issue is I like to be efficient. I like to streamline things, and so um, that's really where I fall right now. Is I'm lacking the equipment to make this easier on myself. Um, so that's really what it boils down to. But I am back with another video. Nonetheless, I just wanted to give that quick little spiel about what's going on. I do want to tell you though, my last video I said that was going to be my last video in the NBA for a while. I lied. There's still news happening. There's still things going on, and I should have known better than to say that because obviously these sports are year round. Even though they don't play year round, there's always news and things to talk about. So I'm going to renege on that statement, obviously, because today I'm going to be talking about the NBA. Not a whole lot. I just want to touch on the Kyrie and LeBron, the whole Cleveland Cavaliers situation, and sort of an outlook onto next year. So with that being said, I want to give my thoughts on the whole situation coming from a fan's perspective, someone who's not inside, right, who doesn't know all the inner workings. Just to tell you what I think. A different perspective, as I said, strictly from a fan's point of view. What I think about the whole situation. So with that, for those of you who are unaware, long story short, basically Kyrie wants out of Cleveland. What the actual reason is, I'm assuming, has yet to be determined. That I think that's yet to be determined, like what the actual tipping point was. There's a lot of people that think it was when the offer was at least presented to get Chris Paul for Kyrie Irving in a roundabout way. I don't know all the details of it. I heard Skip Bayless talking about the deal that Kyrie signed just before LeBron came back and how it was kind of slapping his face in that regard, which I can understand. Makes sense if you're under the impression that you're now taking over and then all of a sudden they put you on a 3-year wait. You're essentially stuck there, and obviously them, Kyrie signing a contract doesn't then obligate them to make him the face of the franchise. But if that were the case, I do think that's a little messed up. Rub or somebody like that, like he's LeBron James, so for that part of it, I get it from where Kyrie's coming from, but I also get it where everyone else is coming from. So that part I'm not really going to speak on, but I do want to talk about the reason he's leaving. And what I don't understand, regardless of what side of the fence you fall on, whether it's for Kyrie leaving and being his own man, or for him staying in Cleveland, regardless of what side you fall on, here's the way I look at it as a fan, and I thought about this for a while. Forget all of the little things that were said, the Steph Kyrie video that came out today. Forget all of that stuff, right? Let's just pretend none of that. I mean, obviously it happened, but let's just set that to the side for a second. Here's what I think is the underlying real reason why Kyrie wants to leave, and I'm looking at it as if I were Kyrie Irving, right? So here's what I think. Here's my theory. I think Kyrie Irving knows that he's not as good as LeBron James. I think he knows that. He's looked upon as sort of like a god of basketball, like LeBron James is. Like LeBron James to some people is the best player ever, right? I don't agree with that, but neither here nor there. there are people who think he is the best player to ever play. Others think he's not the best, but he's top 2 or 3, definitely top 5. I think he's top 5, period. My ranking is different from a lot of people's, but that'll be another video for another day. So I think Kyrie Irving knows all of those things, right? But I think what Kyrie Irving also knows is that he is a superstar. He is entertaining. He can score with the best of them. He can average 25 to 30 points. I think he did average like 26 last year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the exact numbers. But you can essentially pencil him in for 25 or so points per night. Like, you can pretty much book it. No one can guard him. He doesn't guard anyone on the other end, but regardless, no one can guard him. And I think this is the situation he's in. I think he knows on one hand he's not going to be as good as LeBron James, but he knows he is a superstar. And he knows he is a good player. I personally think that on a championship team, I don't know if he could be the best player just because we haven't seen him do that. Now, it'd be interesting to see after a year how he tweaks his game playing on his own or playing with someone that's not LeBron James. So I'll hold my thoughts on that until I see that. I don't know, right? He's validated himself as a champion, not because he won a championship, but because he was a large part of the reason why they won the championship. He was the one that hit the game winner in Game 7 against the Warriors. So it's not like he was just along for the ride. If that's the point I'm getting at. It's not like he was just there, right? He wasn't someone like a who else was on that team last year? Take like a Richard Jefferson, right? Richard Jefferson, obviously early in his career, was a great player. Always been an athletic guy, real good shape, plays defense, can hit the three a little, hustle plays, physical guy. But he's not the reason that they won the championship, right? And I don't want to mistake it as if Kyrie was the sole reason, but he wasn't. Like, Richard Jefferson was nowhere near the reason they won the championship. Like, he was just along for the ride. He contributed, obviously, but he was just more or less along for the ride. Kyrie Irving wasn't along for the ride. Like, he was a huge part of why they won that championship. A bunch of other circumstances as well, but he was a reason, a huge reason. Like, if LeBron was 40%, Kyrie Irving was the other 40%. And then, the rest of the team was the remaining 20. If LeBron's 50, Kyrie's 30, and the rest of the team is the other 20. However you want to slice it and dice it, doesn't really matter to me. You get my point. And so I think Kyrie at this point says, I know that I can know, unless he is to go to another team, be the best player in the championship team, and win 3 or 4 more rings, I know, at least I believe, he thinks or he knows that he can't elevate his legacy any more than he already has. That's my theory. And I think that's the overall reason why he wants to leave is now I think he can focus on stats and MVPs and making all-star teams and NBA first teams and maybe if he changes his game, NBA defensive team. Who knows? Maybe an MVP scoring title. Maybe he could try to average a triple-double like Westbrook. All these things to just boost his brand because his legacy, his place in NBA history, I think is pretty solidified even at 25. He's going to be I think he's Allen Iverson with a ring, right? Well, maybe that might even be too far because Allen Iverson, although he didn't win a championship, he was clearly the best player on the team that went to the finals, and they managed to get a game off the Lakers. So I don't even know if I'd go that far, but you get my point. Like, he's in that realm, right? I'm trying to think of another person that might be someone like that. And off the top of my head, I can't really think of anyone. Maybe like a Dirk Nowitzki, right? We know he's great. He validated himself with a championship. Now, granted, he was the best player on that team, but my point being, I don't think even if Dirk were to win 2 or 3 more rings, I don't think anyone would elevate him above a Tim Duncan, maybe above KG. And I'm talking about power forwards, obviously. But I think, point being, I think Kyrie knows his legacy, unless he goes on this tear and wins a bunch of rings, is pretty solidified where he is. And I think now for him, it's just about maximizing his brand and his potential to make a ton of money, but just being on his own, being on TV, like being the guy, being the story, being the face, instead of being in LeBron's shadow. Now, he already has a big shoe deal. He has an okay contract and all that good stuff. But I think, again, he's at a point where his legacy is pretty solidified. There's not a whole lot he can do under LeBron that's going to maximize it even more. So it's either go enhance your legacy on your own, or if you feel like your legacy is where it's going to be, go maximize your monetary value. That's the way I look at it. Now, all this, I guess, beef, if you want to call it, between him and LeBron, I'm not inside, so I don't know. My guess is it's not as sour as people are making it out to be. I do know LeBron is known, or at least believed, to be a little bit passive-aggressive. He seems to be a little bit passive-aggressive, and I get it. Like, he is on the road. You got to think about it, okay? And part of the reason why I got into this whole ordeal is for thoughts like what I'm about to tell you now. What you have to realize is, think about this, okay? If you go to your local gym or your local community center or rec center and you're playing like flag football or, pickup basketball, or even if you're playing like an amateur league or even semi-pro or college or something like that, right? Think about the amount of people, and let's take where I live right now, Myrtle Beach, right? I play in a flag football league. There's roughly, any given season, 10 to 15 teams, and they all usually have 10 to 15 players per each. So let's just say there's 100, 150 players, right? Just out of those 100 or 150, imagine the ego you would have if you were the single best player out of all of those guys. Stop. Imagine if you're the best player out of all of those guys, right? Now, think about a professional league, NFL, MLB, NBA in this case. Not only are you the best player in that league, in talking about LeBron James, you're the best player that plays basketball on the face of the entire planet. 7 billion people. Think about the ego that you have to have in order to be just that. What you're telling me is out of 7 billion people, you are the one who is the best in a given sport. So I can see from LeBron's point of view why he may be a little upset, a little ticked off, so forth and so on. Because, again, that takes a massive ego. It takes a massive commitment to do so. And for Kyrie Irving to, I guess, bring his name into it, I guess, is the reason, or at least from what I understand, that LeBron is upset about the whole thing. It makes sense. I just don't think it's fair. I think if Kyrie Irving wants to be on his own, let the guy be on his own. He has proven what he is. He's proven how valuable he is to LeBron. Because trust me, LeBron ain't winning those championships without Kyrie Irving. You can say what you want about who's the best player on the team and who should get the credit and who should do this and who should do that. And that's part of the reason why Kobe isn't as elevated as some people think he is. And I happen to disagree. I think he's the second best of all time. Now, part of that is being a homer. Part of that is what I think is reality. Neither here nor there. The point being, his 3 rings with Shaq sort of devalue or bring down his legacy in a lot of people's eyes because they viewed Shaq as the best player in that team. Regardless, Shaq ain't winning those rings without Kobe. He didn't win without. He won with Dwayne Wade, and he won with Kobe. He didn't win by himself. He didn't win in Orlando. He didn't go anywhere else and win. So this idea that Kyrie Irving, all of a sudden, after everyone was praising him, and I watch guys like Colin Cowherd and Shannon Sharp, and I love those guys, and I made the argument the other day, like, there's three. Listen, I go on Twitter, I read articles, I go on Bleacher Report, ESPN, FS1, Shadow League, The Undefeated, the list goes on and on. I absorb sports from all different angles. But I watch Cowherd a lot, I watch Undisputed a lot, I watch First Take a lot. Those are the three that I watch the most, whether it be on YouTube or, live on TV if I have the time. And Cowherd and Shannon Sharp seem to be, I think they're too far onto LeBron's side. Not that you can't be a fan. Obviously, you can be a fan. But they like to diminish everyone else as if no one else matters. And then when LeBron loses, all of a sudden it's everyone else's fault. Right? LeBron's this, LeBron's that, LeBron's the MVP. And then when something happens that is either his fault or a result of him not showing up or whatever the case may be, all of a sudden he's not held accountable by those guys. And in this case, I heard Cowherd and Shannon Sharp throughout the entire basketball season talk about how good LeBron and Kyrie is. And I remember them talking about, well, if Kevin Love went down, that Kyrie and LeBron could still make the finals, which is probably true. I'm not disagreeing with that. But my point being, at that point in time, Kyrie Irving was a man. He'd go get you 30. He'd cross you up. He'd do this at the basket, blah, 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 blah. And then it comes out that he wants to leave, and all of a sudden he's, ball-centric, and he can't pass the ball, and he only does one thing good, and why would he want to leave LeBron? And, they need to make up their mind. And maybe I'm being naive. Obviously, I'm not on TV. Maybe they are saying these things because it is entertaining. Who knows? I don't know that to be sure, to be a fact, but that could very well be the case. Who knows? But it does bother me how no one holds LeBron accountable for anything. And, you hear people say, oh, well, he's got to do everything. He's the player, he's the coach, he's the GM. And then all of these things come out and all these things start to fall apart. And all of a sudden, LeBron's just a player. Like, what is he supposed to do? Dan Gilbert's fault. It's the GM's fault. It's Ty Lue's fault. It's Kyrie's fault. It's Kevin Love's fault. It's Tristan Thompson's fault. LeBron just gets a complete pass for everything. And I don't get it. I really don't. It does kind of bother me. It's not a huge deal, obviously, it is what it is, but it just bothers me how they will lift him up so much and bring everyone else down. And I just don't understand why. Like, what is it that he's done to warrant that kind of praise and no accountability? Like, obviously the guy's an all-time great. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to be misinterpreted in that regard, but he is a human. He makes mistakes. He makes bad calls. He makes bad choices. He makes bad judgment. He does things incorrectly. He misstates things. He misquotes things. He missays things. He does things wrong. Says things wrong. He's a human just like everyone else is. And yes, he's the best basketball player in the world right now, but stop. But the guy, he can't be the player and the coach and the GM, and then when things go wrong, all of a sudden he's not the coach and the GM anymore. Like, you just told me he's the one making all the calls, and now all of a sudden all these things are falling apart, and all of a sudden he's nowhere to be found. He's blameless. Like, it doesn't work that way. If you're going to take the responsibility for being the boss, when things go wrong, you have to take the blame for being the boss. You're the one that's making the calls. Now, I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying if you as an analyst or as a fan, if you're going to give him that title, when things go wrong, you then have to criticize him for things going wrong. And this whole situation screams from other analysts saying, well, no, he didn't do anything wrong. He's LeBron James. Why wouldn't Kyrie want to play with him? There may be a completely valid reason he doesn't want to play with him. People say LeBron's a diva. What if LeBron is just massive diva Kyrie Irving doesn't want to deal with? If that's the case, like, you can't then take Kyrie to task for wanting out. You said it yourself. He is the GM. He's the coach. He's the one making all the calls. So what's the problem? If you're okay with that, then if Kyrie comes out and says, no, it's not this, it's not that, LeBron's, I don't want to be sunned and all this other stuff, that's fine. Like, it's not Kyrie's fault. Like, you gave him that title. Again, if it's accurate or not my call to make. But if you're going to give him that title and give him that praise, you also need to give him that criticism when things go wrong. You don't get to elevate him to this level, and then when things go wrong, all of a sudden you want to shift the blame to everyone else. So I think people need to lay off Kyrie. Now, here's the thing. Personally, I don't know. I think if it wasn't for the fact that we think LeBron's leaving, let's say LeBron had 2 or 3 years left on his contract, then if I were Kyrie Irving, I would say, you know what? I get it. I want to leave, but I'm only 25. By the time I hit 28, I'll be at the peak of my prime. LeBron will be out, and I'll take over the team. But I'll stick with LeBron because from now in the next 3 years, I have a chance to win titles. But I think this has as much to do with the turmoil of the Cleveland Cavaliers organization. At least from the outside, it looks like a disaster right now. I think it's a combination of that and him wanting to be on his own. And as I said before, him trying to further his brand because his legacy is pretty solidified. I think it's a combination of all those things. And I just don't understand why he's being berated and attacked for it. I just don't get it. And why, not only that, but why LeBron is totally unaccountable for any of it. Like, it makes no sense to me. So those are my thoughts on it. This time will not say I won't be talking NBA anymore because who knows? I probably will, depending on probably what happens with this situation, maybe a few others. But I do got more football stuff coming for you. I'm going to be ranking the quarterbacks from 1 to 32 starters, at least the ones I know that are starting. Because I'm, as I said all the time, I'm pretty pumped about football. I could talk football all day. So that'll be one of my next videos, getting back into football. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, lay off Kyrie. Like, the guy, let him do his thing. Like, he's won his title. He's validated himself as a good player. I think he's about maxed out his legacy. Again, unless he's able to go and win 3 or 4 championships on his own, I think he's where he's going to finish legacy. I think if he were to retire right now or retire 10 years from now, I don't think his legacy is going to change. Again, unless he were to win a bunch of titles. So those are my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think. I will see you in the next video. Until then, peace.